Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the first book of Kings. Now the days of David had drawn near, so that he would die, and he instructed his son Solomon, saying, I am entering the way of all the earth. Be strengthened and be a good man, and observe the care of the Lord your God, so that you walk in his ways, so that you care for his ceremonies and his precepts and judgments and testimonies, just as it is written in the law of Moses. So may you understand everything that you do, in any direction that you may turn yourself. So may the Lord confirm his words which he has spoken about me, saying, If your sons will guard their ways, and if they will walk before me in truth, with all their heart and with all their soul, there shall not be taken away from you a man on the throne of Israel. And so David slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David. Now the days during which David reigned over Israel are 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron, 33 in Jerusalem.
Before the crown was lifted, before the kingdom stood, before our names were spoken, you were God. Blessed may you be, O Lord, God of Israel, Father of ages, from eternity into eternity, you remain when all else ends. We inherit dust and memory, we pass on what we cannot keep, but you do not fade with generations. Lord, you are exalted over all, above the throne, above the throne, above the rise and the collapse of kings. Lord, you are exalted over all. Yours, O Lord, are grandeur and power, majesty, splendor, and glory. Every banner lifted in victory borrowed its breath from you. Lord, you are exalted, not claimed by force, not seized by hand. Lord, you are exalted over all. Yours is the sovereignty. You are exalted as head over all. Riches and honor pass through our hands, but they rise and return to you. We send our sons into the future. We hand them crowns still warm with blood. We teach them strength before obedience, and wonder why they fall. You were God before the first command. You will be God when the last word fails. Lord, you are exalted over all, above our strength, above our plans, above what we build grasp only to receive. It is yours to give strength to all.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. And he called the 12, and he began to send them out in twos, and he gave them authority over unclean spirits. And he instructed them not to take anything for the journey except a staff, no traveling bag, no bread, and no money belt, but to wear sandals, and not to wear 2 tunics. And he said to them, "Whenever you have entered into a house, stay there until you depart from that place. And whoever will neither receive you, nor listen to you, as you go away from there, shake off the dust from your feet as a testimony against them." And going out, they were preaching, so that people would repent. And they cast out many demons, and they anointed many of the sick with oil and healed them. Join us for today's reflection. David was dying, 40 years on the throne, shepherd boy to giant killer to fugitive to king. He had united the tribes, conquered Jerusalem, brought the ark home, survived Absalom's rebellion. Now the time had come to go the way of all the earth. He summoned Solomon to his bedside. "I am going the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man." This is what a father says when he knows he will not be there to say it again. Be strong, show yourself a man. The words carry the weight of everything David cannot stay to teach, every battle he cannot fight alongside his son, every decision he cannot help him make. But David did not stop there. Strength alone is not enough. Courage without direction destroys. Keep the mandate of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, commands, ordinances, and decrees as they are written in the law of Moses, that you may succeed in whatever you do and wherever you turn. Here is the inheritance David passed to Solomon, not just a kingdom, not just an army, a way to walk. The path matters more than the throne. David had learned this the hard way. He had been strong, he had shown himself a man, and in his strength he had committed adultery and murder. In his courage he had ordered a census that cost 70,000 lives. Strength without the Lord's ways leads to ruin. So David's last words were not about tactics or territory. They were about obedience. Walk in God's ways, keep his statutes, then you will succeed. Then David rested with his fathers. He was buried in the city of David. Solomon sat on his father's throne, and his kingdom was firmly established. One generation ends, another begins. The question is always the same. Will the son walk in the father's ways? Will the next generation keep what the previous generation passed down? Now look at what Jesus does in the gospel. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2. He gave them authority over unclean spirits. This is the moment the disciples became apostles. The word apostle means one who is sent. Until now they had been students, following Jesus, watching him work. Now they would do the work themselves. And Jesus gave them almost nothing to take. No bread, no bag, no money in their belts, just a staff and the sandals on their feet. 1 tunic, not 2. This was not poverty for poverty's sake. This was enforced dependence. They would have to rely on the hospitality of strangers. They would have to trust that God would provide through the people they were sent to serve. David told Solomon to walk in God's ways. Jesus told the apostles to walk with almost nothing, trusting that God's ways would open doors. Stay in whatever house receives you until you leave that place. And if any place will not welcome you or listen to you, shake the dust from your feet as testimony against them. Some doors would open, some would slam shut. The apostles were not responsible for the response. They were responsible for the message. They went out and preached that people should repent. They drove out many demons and anointed many sick people with oil and healed them. The mission worked, not because they had resources, not because they had a strategic plan, because they had authority from Jesus and nothing else to rely on. Here is what connects these readings. Both are about succession. Both are about passing on something essential to the next generation. David passed the kingdom to Solomon with instructions to walk in God's ways. Jesus passed his authority to the apostles with instructions to travel light and trust God for everything. In both cases, the inheritance was not primarily material, it was spiritual, a way to walk, an authority to exercise, a mission to fulfill. Today, the Church celebrates Saint Agatha, a young woman martyred in Sicily around the year 251. She was barely 20 years old. The Roman prefect Quintianus wanted her for her beauty and her wealth. She refused him because she had already given herself to Christ. He had her tortured. When that did not break her, he had her breasts cut off. When she was healed miraculously in prison, he had her rolled over hot coals. She died in her cell, praying, "Lord, my Creator, you have ever protected me from the cradle. You have taken me from the love of the world and given me patience to suffer. Receive now my soul." Agatha received something from the generation before her. She received the faith, and she passed it on by refusing to let go of it, even when letting go would have saved her life. This is how the faith travels through time, not primarily through institutions or documents, though those matter, through people who receive it, live it, and pass it on, sometimes with words, sometimes with blood. David to Solomon, Jesus to the apostles, the early martyrs to us. What have you received that you are responsible to pass on? Maybe it is the faith itself, handed to you by parents or grandparents or a priest who baptized you before you could speak. Maybe it is a particular wisdom about prayer, about suffering, about how to raise children or endure loss. And to whom are you passing it? David's last words were not casual advice. They were the distillation of a lifetime. Walk in God's ways, keep his statutes, everything else flows from that. Jesus did not give the apostles a manual. He gave them authority and stripped away everything that would distract them from depending on it. Agatha did not write a theology. She lived one and died one. The question for us is the same question every generation faces. Will we receive what has been handed to us? Will we walk in those ways? Will we pass them on? Be strong, show yourself a man, show yourself a woman, walk in God's ways. The next generation is watching.